Good morning, everybody. What a crowd. How are we? Good? For those who don't know me yet, my name is Carl Lumsden. I run the breakfast briefings here with my colleague Lindy. Some of you would know Lindy as well. So, very quick show of hands. Who was here 3 weeks ago with us, not too long ago, for the smart bidding session? Okay, good crowd. So this session in particular for you guys is gonna really double up on what we spoke about last time. So you're welcome back. For those of you that are first timers, always a special invitation to first timers, and thank you for being with us here this morning. I spoke at the last session, guys, about kind of the theme for 2019 for us and what we wanted to help you guys with and give back to you. Was really all around simplicity and bringing it kind of back to basics. There's been a lot of white noise, a lot of kind of big shifts in the industry in the last couple of years in particular. So how could we make things simple for you guys and make your lives a little bit easier? So a few weeks ago, we had the session on smart bidding. This is kind of part 2 of that session. So today's all about smart creatives. How can we save time and give you guys time back to put into your business around, creating those ad texts, making sure that the ad copy is actually going to be the right one to get in front of the customer at the right time, and ultimately drive results for your business. So, the first thing I want to say as well today, last time we had a competition for Kahoot, which cost me a prize out in the store afterwards, but today we're going to have a competition as well. There's a Google Home Mini up for grabs. Best social media post, which is going to be judged by Marie Davis at the back of the room. Best social media post of the day. I'll come back up on stage and announce it, and you'll grab a Google Home Mini. As always, the content is going to be fully recorded, guys, so feel free to scribble down notes and all, but you can, of course, watch it back. It'll be up on the Google and YouTube Ireland channel afterwards. And we will email around the content as well, so you'll be able to pick through the content yourselves, go through the slides, and take some more time to go through it yourselves. Okay, lastly for me, before I introduce our speakers as well, our next session on, I think it's April the 5th, the first Friday of April anyway, we're going to have a session on audiences, which is kind of like part 3, if you like, of what we've covered off so far. So we had smart bidding. How can we make our bids more effective and be kind of sharper on the button there? Today is all about smart creatives and how we can make sure that we're getting the right message in front of the right people. But the third piece, which you would have heard mentioned in the last session, and you will hear it mentioned today, is how can we layer that data that we have on your customers into the actual algorithm? How can we use the information that you have to strengthen your ads as well? Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over in a moment to Dylan and Ogie. So the guys look after some of our largest customers in the UK and Ireland team. And they're pretty much at the forefront from our business side around how we can use the strategies that they're going to talk to you about today to actually better those campaigns. And as I said, today is all about simplicity, and the theme for the year is going to be making it really simple for you guys. And the guys are going to break it down pretty much into 3 core areas for you. Search, responsive search ads, dynamic search ads, and responsive display ads. And in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Dylan, who's going to talk us through the search side of that, and then Ogie's going to take us through the display side. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Dylan O'Brien.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. Just to echo Carl's point, my name is Dylan O'Brien, and I'm an e-commerce account manager here in the UKI team, looking after some of the largest e-commerce retailers within the UK and helping them to grow their businesses incrementally. In terms of the agenda today, I will be covering off in the first part why we should be caring about creatives and the purpose of why we need to be caring more about what we're actually putting in front of our audience. We want to then look at tailoring our ads with responsive search ads, the newest form of ad format on the search network. Then we're going to move on to how we can find relevant new incremental traffic using dynamic search ads before I'll pass over to Ogie to talk display for performance. I'm going to kick things off by just giving us a kind of a snapshot of where we stand today and why that is indeed the case. Consumers, and that goes for every single one of us in the room because that's what we are. We are more curious, demanding, and impatient than ever before. Now, the reason for that is ultimately through the growth of digital, through the growth of mobile, and the allowance for us to have everything we could ever wish for at our fingertips. We no longer have the need to have waiting times for delivery of products. We have extensive competition within every single vertical and sub-vertical and product and service that we could possibly imagine. And it has resulted in us becoming extremely, extremely demanding of digital and of ourselves. Some of the more common themes and some of the three, I'd say, overarching themes as to why this is indeed the case are as follows. The first is voice search. Voice search is a growing phenomenon, again, as a result of the growth of mobile and the growth of digital here within Google. Amazing status, voice search now equates to 20% of searches in the US on a day-to-day basis. And you're thinking how and why that is the case. Again, it's true, people's reliance on mobile phones. It's true, even something as simple as Google Homes within every home within the US, and the reliance on that now to provide media and digital solutions within the household. And then also we have new queries. 15% of queries on Google on a day-to-day basis are brand new, previously unwritten queries. So it's very hard to keep up with that demand and that pace of change on the internet. Lastly is the complexity of our websites. Some people here in the room work for businesses that offer 50, 100,000 products. The depth and the level of intricacy of those websites are so vast that it can be very, very difficult for us as marketeers to match that demand and match that change. And I guess what is, our responsibility? We can't let this bypass us. We have to be one step ahead at all times. And that's what we're here to discuss today. Bringing it back to Google Ads, this gets to the point where now each one of us expects the right message. Not only the right product and service, but the right message and the right tailored message to our needs and our query. I'm going to give you a real-life example here, and I'm going to focus on ultimately a failed Irish startup business, which is, and I'm going to just look for a show of hands. Would anyone be familiar with Keen to Be Green gardening solutions? Is there a hand back? No, that's fine. I wouldn't expect you to be, because that was 13-year-old myself, Dylan O'Brien's first steps in entrepreneurship into door-to-door lawn cutting. I thought my dad got a brand new Honda lawnmower, and I saw it as a fantastic opportunity to make a little bit of side cash for myself. He leveraged that. He asked for 10% of every lawn cut. I did check there's no one from revenue in today, so I think he's safe on that. And ultimately, what I wanted to do was make a little bit of extra pocket money for myself. So I thought I had the market down. I said, let's be realistic. I'm going to be pushing around the lawnmower here. I thought about a 500-meter radius within the house was the absolute maximum I could do. So I went out and I sought how I can create the perfect ad. So I went to Microsoft Paint, and I used fantastic word art, if I say so. You'll be familiar with the fluorescent rainbow text of Keen to Be Green Gardening Solutions by Dylan O'Brien. And what I did was, ultimately I thought, what is the most appealing way to push this new business onto potential customers? I knew that every single person I was going to was the right person. They all had lawns and they all had grass, so I was very sure that I had the right audience. But I think I made a fatal error. I tailored this creative and my ad and my flyer to me. I thought, what are these people looking for? And I thought, the first thing people are thinking about is cash. If I can offer a very cheap and ultimately high quality service, I think that I can capture demand. So I did. I put the pricing front and center, €5 for your front garden, €5 for your back, and special offer if you want front and back of €15. So the idea was that I had the advertisement tailored to myself. I went out and I posted it to the 200 houses in my 500-meter radius. And over the course of the next 2 months, I got 7 phone calls. €35 in my back pocket, 5 of which from my grandfather, 2 of which were houses nearby. Looking back now, it's very easy to see why I failed. Every single household, every single user, every single customer was unique. Every single person wanted, ultimately, the same service, but they wanted it for very, very different reasons. By tailoring my ad for what I felt was price, for high quality, indeed, I captured a few, my granddad being one 5 times, but there was a whole other segment that I could have captured if I had the right creative, if I tailored my advertisement to meet the masses rather than the select few. This is where we want Google Ads creatives to sit. We want to ultimately step in to allow us to be fluid, dynamic with our creatives, and to not let that incremental traffic slip through our fingers. To Tom Gillespie's point last week, and as Carl was mentioning, we focused on smart bidding last week. We've done the hard work. We have profiled these users and these customers and have recognized, hey, these are going to be fantastic opportunities to get sales, to get leads for our business. We can't let that slip through our fingers. These are the highest quality customers that are at our fingertips. We need to make sure we are getting traction on them. The 3 core principles of the Smart Creatives and Google Smart Creatives are work faster, work smarter, and win more. The work faster piece is simple. You don't want to spend laborious minutes, hours, and days and weeks in a year creating what you deem is the perfect creative, when we can ultimately feed Google's machine learning with assets and USPs of our business and services of what we feel best represents our business. Let the system decide what works for that particular user. We don't have the decision to we don't have the power, should I say, manually to profile these users when that click and that search happens, but Google machine learning does. We want to work smarter. We don't want to spend our time A/B testing ad v ad, day v day, and finding out what ad works at what day, because ultimately we don't have access to the query. We'll never truly know what is the right ad for that moment. And then lastly is win more. Ultimately, what we want to do here is achieve a better ROI. We want to be as profitable as businesses as we possibly can. And are we doing so by reaching the absolute maximum, the absolute maximum audience that we possibly can on search? And that's ultimately what we look to do. The different creatives that we have at our fingertips range in both search and shopping. I'm going to be focusing on search, talking about responsive search ads, and also dynamic search ads. Responsive search ads, as I said, a relatively new ad format, came into Google search last year. And dynamic search ads, something you may be a little bit more familiar with. And then Ogie's going to touch base on the display side of things. Responsive search ads. I think the best way to think and to visualize this is incremental traffic on what we're currently targeting. This is not going after new keywords. It's not going after new users. It's not prospecting upper funnel. It is saying people who we have deemed as important to us. We have outlined our keywords, who we want to be targeting, but ultimately they've slipped through the cracks due to our ad not being meeting their needs, should I say. What we want to do with responsive search ads is look at that unclick through rate. Look at what previously passed us by and how we can tailor our creative in a better and more dynamic and fluid way to ultimately capture that click. How it works is very, very simple. Ultimately, what we want to do is use your creative ad assets. You're in control of what shows with the responsive search ad. We use a variety of headlines, up to 15 headlines if you choose so, and 4 descriptions. It will then cross-reference what descriptions and what ad descriptions work best for that particular moment, and trial out, and at the start, trial out what works well in what individual auction, and ultimately showcase the best ad. It will then, in time, recognize what particularly works for what particular audience. And then we can gain some historical data and ultimately in time, be more, as data comes in, be more and more precise in our targeting. What exactly goes into this, though? What exactly decides what works well, where the ad shows, and how it shows? It's a whole host of information, very similar to what we use in the bidding algorithm. It can be the location of the user, the day of the week in which they're searching, the time of the day. It can be the audience, and the audience, which is next week, is it a past visitor to the website? Have they actually bought off us before? And then also some of the smaller things like the actual operating system and the device itself. Now, manually, the millions and millions of signals that occur within one individual search, it's not possible for us as marketers manually to tailor our creative to the audience. But this is why we'll look to use responsive search ads. We look to use them to get the absolute most out of what we deem as important traffic to us and important and relevant customers. What we can expect to see through adoption of responsive search ads is about a 10% uplift in clicks, but also conversions. Now, this is at the same cost as what we're currently achieving. It's with relevant and appropriate audience because it's using the keywords we want, and allows us to take up more space, allows us to have more flexibility on search, and ultimately have more control. I want to move on now to DSAs and dynamic search ads. Now, while I previously mentioned that responsive search ads are incremental traffic on what we're currently targeting, dynamic search ads are looking for incremental traffic on maybe what we've missed out on, potentially what we're not offering up currently on search, but what we do deem as an important business or service or product to ourselves. Dynamic search ads are simple in how they operate. What they do is they crawl your website. It determines what is and what is not relevant to you as a business. And what it will do is it will look at your Google Ads account and it will match. If, for instance, it's ASOS, big clothing brand company. If it has a form of red Adidas shoes, big seller. And currently within the Google Ads campaigns, you're not actually targeting it. Just due to the sheer complexity of your website, you've actually missed this trick. Now, DSA will look to crawl your website and say, hey, this is a business offering that we offer. It's something that we have outlined within the DSA we want to capture and ultimately showcase our ad to that user. What we'll see is we feed the actual targeting mechanism of what we want. So whether that's the whole website, we can select particular web pages. And ultimately what will occur is when queries are happening on a day-to-day basis in your targeted location, the system will then determine if that user is a right fit to the business. But paired with smart bidding of last week, we can determine if it's actually going to be profitable for us to enter that space. So that would be ideal with dynamic search ads. Pairing the fluidity, the dynamic nature and the fact that it does pick up incremental traffic, but paired with smart bidding, setting it to your marketing goals, we can be sure that it's going to do so in a very profitable manner. The ad that appears also is purely dynamic on what the user searches. It looks at your website, looks at the query, and creates an ad that suits that. We have a whole host of targeting options in front of us and available to us. The first, right down the far left, would be URL. That is deciding on a distinct URL that we want to target. So we know that potentially we don't want to allow it to target the whole web pages initially, but we want more control. We want to define exactly what web pages we want to target on a day-to-day basis. Moving along, we have page feeds. This allows for maximum control, but for larger sites, and ultimately having a live page feed feeding into the campaign of what URLs and what web pages we want the dynamic search ads to target. The next is categories. If we think of categories like, a good example, again, the ASOS. When you go to ASOS, it has men's, it has women's. Within men's, it has shirts, it has socks, it has shoes, it has pants, it has jeans. And similarly within women's, the exact same. Categories will allow us to take those. How your website is set up and categorized, it crawls it, it determines what it deems your categorization, and it will showcase those categories to you and allow you to target those specifically. The next is landing pages from standard ad groups, and a place where a lot of our advertisers actually start off. This is what incremental traffic are we missing out on the web pages we're targeting. Because as I said, 15% of queries on a day-to-day basis are brand new to Google. Is it going to be physically possible for us to update our keywords on a day-to-day basis to match that demand, crawling through the search term reports, see what's relevant of that particular day, week, and month, and create a keyword? Potentially, but it's going to be laborious. It's going to take time. Dynamic search ads and landing pages from standard ad groups allows us to say, hey, I'm going to allow you to look to see what we're currently targeting. If there's anything we're missing out on, please do showcase an ad if you deem it's profitable, if you deem that they're going to purchase, if they're going to fill out a lead form, if they're going to convert. And then lastly is all web pages. This is a much more broad scheme targeting mechanism, and if you want the license to cover every aspect of your website, you can do so. As I said, this is a fabulous option for us as marketeers. It allows us to capitalize on the fact that consumers are indeed more impatient. It is an opportunity. It's not a hindrance. The fact that users are more impatient and more demanding than before, it's an opportunity for us as businesses to get the leap on our competitors through use of something as simple as dynamic search ads. The best practice is to utilize this and utilize this with smart bidding as mentioned. The expectation once applied is that 86% of traffic from that campaign will be completely new, be completely incremental to our what we're currently targeting on search. Now, the reason for that is because of quality scores and whatnot. I won't get into that too much today, but we can ensure that this will be previously untouched and previously uncaptured users, but extremely, extremely relevant. Just to summarize, because we've come to the end of the section on search. On the left-hand side, and I think two ways I always think of it. Responsive search ads, incremental traffic on what we're currently targeting, dynamic, incremental traffic on what we're not. With responsive search ads, ultimately what we want to do is ultimately showcase a dynamic creative against the keyword that we have currently targeted. You control the creative, you control the assets and the headlines that we're feeding in, but you're just taking that weight off your shoulders of knowing, am I using the right creative at the right time? Well, with responsive search ads, we know we are. With dynamic search ads, you hold the control. We show for who you want who we know and deem relevant on the basis of the web pages that you selected. And ultimately, paired with smart bidding, we know that we're not going to be unprofitable in doing so. We're going to maintain and achieve an ROI or a CPA, which we have aligned to our goals. I'm going to pass you on to Ogie now, who's going to go through the display side of things. But feel free to shoot me a LinkedIn afterwards if any of you need your lawns cut. Cheers. Thanks very much.
Good morning, folks. How are you all feeling? Few still asleep in the back down there? No, we're all good. Guys, quick just reminder before we kick off. For all of you who want to enter the competition, please use the hashtag GoogleBB for breakfast briefing to be with a chance to winning the Google Home Mini at the end. So guys, my name is Ogie Hollywood. Possibly the best name you've ever heard, more likely than not the worst name you've ever heard, but how enough, I'll let you guys make that decision. Outside of Google, I consider myself a bit of an outdoor fanatic. I love hiking, mountain biking, anything I can do to get outdoors. My latest endeavor is Sunday morning swims in Dalkey. If you're brave enough or simply just stupid like myself, feel free to come and join. It's a great way to dust off the cobwebs after a Saturday night, potentially having too many pints of the black stuff. But great Sunday morning all the same. Here, day-to-day within Google, I work as an e-commerce account manager with some of our largest pure online players within the UK. And why I'm here today to speak to you guys is because I'm also a display expert within our team, and I want to give you guys some insights in terms of our creative elements within our display advertising solutions that we have to offer you. Within our display network, before I jump into it, I want to give you a bit of a context. So our display network is the largest in the world. It consists of over 2 million different websites. And if we look at our data, the data that we have as a company is greater and more beneficial to you guys as advertisers than you can receive anywhere else. Why is that? We have 7 different properties with over 1 billion users on each, and we can compile those resources to understand the user behavior across those different channels to predict and understand user intent and behavior. When I jump into display, I want to give you guys a bit of an example. I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of the marketing team for lifestyle sports. Your job is obviously acquiring new customers and retaining your current customers. My colleague Dylan over here, he's into sports. He uses his mobile phone, he takes it out and he pops in a search for Nike training shoes, looking for a new pair of gym runners. He's presented with a number of search results and he clicks through to Lifestyle Sports and he browses their offerings for Nike shoes. He has a look, but he doesn't make a purchase on that day. He wants to go for a bit more consideration to make that decision before he buys. Myself, on the other hand, also looking for a new pair of training shoes. And like Dylan, you can see we're similar, wearing pretty close outfits tonight. But what we're seeing is, even though I put in the same search, I don't end up in the same place as Dylan. What happens when I search is I see a number of different advertisements, But for whatever reason, I'm drawn to Elvery's. Whether they're the first listing or whether it's because they're more appealing to me, I click on Elvery Sports ad and I view their offerings. As you can see here, quite comprehensive. Now, what if I said to you, as a lifestyle sports marketing team, how could you both prospect someone like me who's never been to your website, but clearly has an interest and intent to buy Nike training shoes, but also retarget someone like Dylan who's already been to your site but hasn't yet purchased? That's where I'm going to introduce you guys to smart display campaigns. This is our go-to format in terms of driving performance from our display products. A lot of you may have seen display in the past as an awareness-based branding piece. However, it's come an awful long way from then, and now we can utilize it as one of our most beneficial performance products going beyond search advertising. What smart display campaigns are made up of is quite straightforward. Smart bidding solutions underpins how we bid to our users, automated targeting to get you the right users for the right ad, and also automated creatives in order to show the right ad to the right user. And I'm going to talk through those in a little bit more detail. In order for you to set up smart display campaigns, it's really straightforward. All you have to provide us is a target CPA, what you're willing to pay for a cost per acquisition, campaign budget, and also give us some creative assets, some images and some headlines, and we'll do the rest. What do we deliver for you? We give you access to the largest GDN inventory across the web. We'll set the right bid for the right user at the right time, and we'll also create dynamically generated advertisements and assets for each individual auction and each individual user. It's pretty impressive, right? We're going to go into a little bit more depth in terms of what smart bidding means. Tom would have covered this last week in a lot of depth in terms of what it means for search advertising, and he may have touched briefly on display. Today I want to look at going into smart bidding in a little bit more depth for display advertising. Not all machine learning is the same. Google Brain is one of the most developed and advanced machine learning technologies in the world. It's developed with our team based in DeepMind in London, and what they're doing is cutting edge. You may be very familiar with the AlphaGo game, which has been absolutely astronomical in terms of the advancements in how far machine learning has came, and that's what we give you guys access to whenever you bid through our solutions. Unmatched scale. This is something which is really important when we look at our display network. As mentioned, we have over 2 million different websites. That increases to 3 million if you include all of our apps that you can advertise across. That allows us to serve more ads, but also to learn faster and understand what works well and where is the best place for us to put our ads. And also allows us to innovate quicker in order for us to change and adapt to where are the right locations and allow our bidding algorithms to calculate more effectively quicker. More signals, but more importantly, better signals. As mentioned, with those 7 different properties with 1 billion users each, we have a really clear understanding of what users want when they go online, what their interests are, what their demographics are, what they intend to buy when they go to Google search, or more importantly, when they're browsing the web. When we look at our automated targeting metrics, there's a lot which goes into this. This is essentially how we target your ads and how we show your display-based advertisements to your potential customers and current returning customers. What we look at initially, on the left-hand side here, is your Google Ads and your website content. So we understand that you guys have audience lists, you have users who've already been to your website. You also have the landing pages and the site content which is contained within your website. And we then have the audience interests. So all of those users that you compile, we can profile and look at the interests of those users. And that then allows us to best identify what types and combinations of targeting for us to use in order to both profile and retarget your customers. Whether that be more upper funnel, topics and placements, or right down to the very lower end of the funnel in terms of our remarketing and similar audience solutions. In terms of creatives, which is one of the big topics of today, this is where we kind of see the pivotal success in terms of how smart display works and how it takes out some of the manual labor hours for you, but outputs more successful and better results for you also. In terms of your building blocks, this essentially is your marketing assets, your images, your logos, and your descriptive text that you want to put forward and you want to show to your customers. And then what we do is we make a prediction, and we'll understand which of those is best to show at what time. And the combination of different assets that we can then serve to your customers are our text-based advertisements on display for desktop. We have image-based advertisements on mobile. We have native formats, we have non-native formats. And we will combine those different resources and platforms in order to best serve your advertisements to your customers at the time when they need them. So once you have our bidding down, we're utilizing smart bidding solutions. Once you understand our targeting and how we're targeting users, and also the creatives that we're going to put forward, we want to make sure that we're following best practice. Because like anything, we want to make sure that we have the correct setup in order for it to be successful for us as a company. Setting your budget is really, really important, and setting a realistic budget that is actually able to achieve the goals that you want to get out of this campaign is actually pivotal towards the success of it. If we want our smart bidding solutions to learn and ramp up and get you the best performance for your company, you need to give it realistic expectations and allow it the chance to scale and perform. What we recommend as a best practice is about 20 times your CPA as your daily budget. So if you have a £2 CPA target, you want to put a £40 daily budget against that campaign in order to give it the chance of performing and getting you optimal level of conversions. That means you get 20 conversions a day. It means you have a high chance of ramping up and scaling this at a quick pace and allowing our machine learning solutions to work as best possible. Second is setting your bid. And this, again, is pivotal to the success of the campaign. We have to be realistic with how much we're willing to pay in order to acquire a new user, and be something which is in line with what is reasonable and actionable for our machine learning solutions. With smart display campaigns, we look at, generally speaking, a 2 to 2.5 times CPA target of what you currently achieve on search. This is a slightly more per-funnel product. This is mainly an acquisition channel, and therefore we understand that you will pay slightly more for a new acquisition of a user using smart display versus what you would achieve on your generic search campaigns. Maximizing your creatives, again, is really, really important. So I mentioned before, creatives for smart display are your images, your marketing images, your logos, descriptive text, and your headlines. But what can we actually do with this in terms of how many creatives can we put in and what's best practice? We want to use as many as possible, to be very honest, because that gives us more resources in order for our solutions to then learn and adapt to those solutions. So putting in, ideally, 5 different headlines, 5 different descriptions, 15 different marketing logos, 15 marketing images, apologies, and 5 different logos will set you up for best practice and in order to give you the best chance to get the performance that you require from the campaign. Really important next step, once we have everything set up. So we have our budgets in place, we have our bid set, and we have our creatives in place. Fantastic. Now we launch it, and we want to make sure that we are waiting before we make any actions, before we start to evaluate the performance, or before we start to make changes to the assets that we put in. The reason being, any of our machine learning solutions have a ramp-up or learning phase. And that's how it works. It has to learn, it has to input data in order for it to output results for you. Generally speaking, there's a 1 to 2 week learning phase for this type of campaign in order for it to understand what works well, what targeting to use, what users to reach. After that period is over, that's whenever we're going to see optimal performance. So week 2 to 4 is when we will see the campaign performing at its kind of best performance and full functionality. After that 4-week period is over, then we can start to optimize. Yes, it's an automated campaign, but you still have a lot of control in terms of what assets you're putting into the campaign, how they're being served, and how they're performing. So, for an example, if you want to get more volume from this campaign and you want to achieve higher conversions, but you're willing to slightly sacrifice a small bit in terms of CPA, you can increase that CPA target by 10 to 20%, and that will allow you to get more volume at a slightly higher cost per acquisition. On the flip side, if you want to reduce costs, you want to get slightly cheaper cost per acquisition, but you're going to limit scale a small bit and limit your volume that you're able to achieve, you can decrease that by 10 to 20%. No more than those amounts, because it will massively change the learning period and reset the campaign if you make any more than a 20% adjustment to your target CPA. And finally, in terms of your creatives, again, we don't just say, let's put in a load of images and headlines and then let it work away forever. No, we actually give you asset level reporting. So we allow you to understand each of those headlines, images, and descriptions that you put in. We will evaluate and judge whether they're high-performing, high-quality assets, or whether they are low-performing and assets that could potentially need to be replaced and updated. And that's what a continual process will happen every 3 to 4 weeks, is you will go in, review your assets, see what's working well, see what could be improved, replace the low-performing, and put in our better-performing new assets that we can then test and learn from. So guys, now you understand what Smart Display is, you understand how to set it up, how to set up the best practices. I want to bring you guys through a small bit of a case study and example of success with Smart Display campaigns. And this is something which is really impressive to me for a number of reasons, but mainly it was looking at changing a marketing team of a very large multinational in terms of how they seen their overall marketing goals and what they could do with display advertising. The example is Trivago, one of the best-known online sites for booking hotels across the world. What Trivago did with Smart Display campaigns was they used them as a way of both acquiring new customers and retaining current customers. And where the real insight came was, if you're going to Barcelona for a weekend away, traditionally with hotel advertising, you would search for the W and you would have a look at that hotel. You might not book that day. And what you generally get is loads of really heavy remarketing ads for that hotel, whether it's images of their luxurious suite or whether it's the swimming pool with the cocktail bar. But what they realized was people actually weren't engaging with the images of the hotel as much as they thought whenever they were using Smart Display. And they became the low-performing assets. And it made them question their overall marketing strategy as to why this was. And what we found out was the intelligence of our machine learning solutions that were built into the back end of this campaign realized that people's intent to go on holidays wasn't based around the hotel they were going to stay in. It was based in the city that they were going to visit. And therefore, the machine learning itself actually realized this very quickly, that people were engaging with the images of Barcelona or the images of Rome as opposed to the images of individual hotels. And that's now how they built out their overall Smart Display strategy going forward. They're reaching out to users in 55 different countries with Smart Display, and I think they've shown over 25,000 different creative assets to their users across our networks using this solution. And the results for them in terms of actual impact, they've seen a 36% higher conversions coming from Smart Display campaigns versus standard display advertising. So it's absolutely astronomical, both for the machine learning element of going beyond what we know as marketeers to be factual in terms of how our business performs, but also in terms of driving actual performance for them as a business. So guys, I'm going to move past Smart Display and look at responsive display ads. And I want to make a really clear distinction between the difference because there is some similarities. Smart Display is a fully automated campaign type, which runs on CPA bidding, and everything is automated in terms of creatives, assets, and targeting. Responsive display ads are our latest and greatest ad format for standard display campaigns. That is, campaigns where you choose the targeting type, whether that be a remarketing-only campaign or a custom intent-based campaign. You choose the targeting, but now you're handing over some of the control to us in terms of what creatives we're going to show your users whenever they're browsing across our display network. In terms of how they work, it's quite similar to what I went through in terms of Smart Display functionality and format. You feed this campaign your assets. Assets, again, being headlines, descriptions, logos, and really high-quality marketing images. And this is a really big change in the landscape because previously a lot of businesses used to go to design teams to build up banner ads which were in the perfect size, perfect format in order to show across our different inventory across the web. This can be very expensive, very time-consuming, and very limiting towards what we can do in terms of entering smart display solutions and also expanding our offering on display. So with this solution, there's no need to go to those design teams anymore. There's no need to put that massive investment. Use the high-quality images that you have in your company. Use the advertisements and text ads and headlines that you're already using to massive effect within your search advertising and put them forward on our display network and allow us to auto-generate the best fit of that potential ad possible. In terms of the results that we're seeing from responsive display ads, it's been absolutely outstanding in terms of how vastly outperforming they are to our standard image-based ads, which are those pre-designed or pre-created. Even though they may look beautiful and your design team has spent a lot of time on them, the reality is these are more effective because they react and change and adapt to the user at hand to show them the most relevant ad to them, as opposed to fitting them all with one size fits all. In terms of this campaign type or this ad type, yes, we're getting better performance and getting better reach with this campaign, but you're also not compromising control. Really importantly for you guys as marketeers that you have control over what you're putting forward, what images are going forward, and what ads are being served to customers. So therefore, we allow you asset-level reporting, which means across each of one of those assets, those headlines and images, we again allow you to see which ones are best performing, which are poor performing, which ones you should leave in, which ones you should take out. And this is obviously really beneficial from an analysis and monitoring perspective. We also support multiple asset types per ad, and essentially what this means again is we no longer just put in one headline and say, great, that's our headline, or one description. We again have the functionality to compile and put in numerous descriptions, numerous headlines, and numerous high-quality images in order for us then to better predict, using our machine learning solutions, what the best version of that is at any one time for any one user. We also have format control, and format control is really important for some advertisers. We can show across all formats, or we can look at going into native or non-native formats. And what I mean by those terms is native advertising with Display Network is something which fits into the context of a website, which is kind of streamlined into, say, a blog post, and you don't notice it's even an advertisement. Second to this will be our non-native, which is maybe what you're familiar with in terms of display advertising, which is your large banner ads, which are clearly an advertisement on the left-hand side or at the very top of a website. It's not native to the content. It's a standalone advertisement, and it's very clear to see. And this is the final point here is color control. And this is something which is really important, and we've heard you guys loud and clear whenever you said your branding and your color schemes and imagery is really, really important to you as a company, and you want to make sure that whenever you're putting an ad forward to show to your customers, it's in line with your brand image and it's in line with the color scheme you want to have. So therefore, you now have full control over setting your primary and secondary colors of how these ads are going to be displayed when they go onto our networks. So guys, thank you very much. That has been our presentation today on both search creatives, looking at responsive search ads and dynamic search ads, and I've ran through our smart display campaigns along with responsive display ads. We're going to bring Carl back up, who's going to present the winner of our prize today, and also Dylan's going to come back up for any questions.
Okie doke. Thanks for that, guys. We're going to get some questions in a second, folks, but first it's the competition. So I can safely say that Dylan's keen to be green seems to be the strongest takeaway from today. I think about 3/4 of the tweets and whatnot were coming for that. So unfortunately, Dylan, I have to break it to you that it seems someone has already taken that domain in Australia, so you won't be going international.
It's all taken from
The
me.
winner, though, today is Rona O'Connor. Is Rona here? Up the front. So Rona said, Dylan O'Brien talking us through why smart creatives are so important for businesses to succeed, unlike keen to be green. It's all about the creative and dynamic search ads. Hashtag Google BB. Congratulations, Rona. Okay, guys, so we've got about 5 minutes for questions. We're talking about ad creative here, right? This is one of our fundamentals, so I would encourage you to take this time with the guys here. They do lead on this from our point of view, from our side of the business as well. So if you've got questions, please raise your hand. We'll throw the mic around to you. And I can see a gentleman up the back top left, actually. So we might just throw it and pass it up if we can.
Where are we going to?
So if you just throw it, grand.
Oh. What's going on?
Keep going back. If you just put your hand up, please, sir. Thank you.
Keep throwing up. Don't hit anyone on the head, please.
Brand's on, yeah. So how do the new smart creatives and stuff like that and the new bidding, how does that work with negative keywords?
Sorry, could you just repeat that again? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of...
Okay, yes. Sorry, yeah.
Can I just repeat the question if you didn't hear it? Essentially looking at asking, with all the smart creatives and smart bidding solutions, how do they work with negative keywords?
Yeah.
So great question and very, very relevant. If you have negative keywords list applied to any search campaign, they will still be adhered to and respected. The smart bidding will just look at the targeting that you are using. In terms of the keywords that you are trying to target, it will go after them and bid for them.
Sure. Okay, sorry, one more question. How does the new smart bidding, smart creative, does that make tools like ad scale and kind of automated tools sort of redundant or less important?
To an extent, I guess it depends on what you're using them for and where the functionality is. So if you're using them tools to create display-based advertisements, which are banner ads that are pre-designed, then potentially if you want to move forward to responsive display ads, which are better performing, yes, it takes out some of the need for those in certain instances, but also there is certain instances where you still are going to require them based on your needs as a business.
Okay, brilliant, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, just here in the middle, if you can reach that lady.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Ambitious. Well done.
Catch.
Where's the mic? Here. Kathy Sarahan, Women on the Run. I'm just wondering about your dynamic campaigns and the cost of these, because I'm obviously a sole trader. So I'm just wondering, is it something that it was in the reach of a small company?
Of course, it's a completely relevant question, and I think more pressing for small businesses than most. Google, I think the realization is in time that Google, we can't be a sustainable business if we ask marketers to bid towards keywords. Keywords aren't profitable. Keywords are merely what we deem relevant. But ultimately, the goal of a CPC and the cost per click is ultimately to gain traffic. With the dynamic side of things, with entering new incremental traffic, we need to ensure profitability, which is why it's really important for us from the get-go to pair this with our smart bidding. We decide if it's a retail business, we decide an ROI or a return on investment that suits us, or if it's a lead generation or a service that we're offering, we decide a CPA that suits us and a cost per acquisition. But the control is in our hands in terms of bidding. We don't have to worry about the intricacies of keyword level bids. We just set and tell them, however you want to bid, as long as it achieves our marketing goal, it can do so.
But is there a minimum budget for somebody that is going to use, the dynamic instead of just, creating the ads themselves?
Great question. Again, in terms of it's completely self-managed. Ultimately, to Ogie's point in display, we would encourage a minimum of 5x your CPA on search from an initial standpoint to get a learning. The higher the budget, the more auctions it enters and the quicker it learns. But a 5x I would suggest as a minimum budget initially.
Thank you. And do you want to come out and cut the grass?
No problem. I actually wouldn't mind. We might sync up afterwards.
Any other questions, guys? Just raise your hand.
Oh.
Caught off guard.
Women on the run. Huh? Hi, I got a question in terms of voice search. Are you guys using voice search in a different way for the dynamics ads and how displaying? Because that's the new thing. I suppose it's coming, next year. It comes from the US. Then people are now searching with voice search. How do you work it out now with the ads? Is it something different? So it's
Yeah, again, a brilliant question. I think voice search is just the key backbone and the key driver of why that query growth is happening at such a phenomenal pace. I mean, the internet has been around and part of our lives for 20 years now, but the pace of change in terms of queries is constantly changing. Voice search is the key driver of that. How we match that with our campaigns is exactly that, is let's be dynamic. To keep up with keywords, it's going to be very, very difficult, but with a dynamic search campaign, we can still ensure that we are targeting customers relevant to our website or our product, but also ensure that we're not missing out the longer tail queries of voice search, because whether we like it or not, that curiosity and that impatientness comes true when we're searching on voice. It tends to be long and very exact of what we're actually searching for. The dynamic aspect will come in and showcase ads. And the creative will match the content, but also will be ensuring that we're showing relevant content.
okay. Well, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, time for maybe just one more, folks, and then we'll let you go. Are we all good? Down the front
One
here,
more
sorry.
down the right,
Oh, nice.
Okay. Hey. Hi, I'm Mick. A question for Ogie. On the display smart option, what have you guys seen as a click-through rate on those display ads? And what will be the attribution from those?
Yeah, great question. In terms of click-through rate, it's going to vary an awful lot by industry, so it's very hard to give an overall average click-through rate, so that's something which I wouldn't be able to provide you. In terms of attribution, at present, there's two kind of models in terms of what we're working towards. Based on the CPA target, we will be still using a click-based attribution model in terms of last click. At present, we are looking at developing and advancing that into multi-touch point attribution within the next year. The other element of display advertising measurement is our view-through conversion metric. So if someone views an ad but doesn't directly click and then purchases afterwards without going through any other means of ad, it will then get a view-through conversion, etc. So they're the two columns you would look at, is actual click-based conversions and view-through conversions.
And is the view-through attribution can be seen through Google Analytics, or is?
Great question. So at present, it's not something which is available to bid towards. It's more so just for reporting in order for you to analyze against. So you will see the metric, and you can combine both click-through and view-through in order to get your overall CPA. But it will, in terms of what we bid towards, we're still only able to bid towards click-based, but it's more from a measurement and viewing perspective for yourself. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Brilliant. Okay, folks, we're going to let you go. One more final round of applause, please, for our speakers. And we're back on Friday, April 5th for our next breakfast briefings, which is centered around audience strategy. Thanks, folks.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.